The Earnestly Speaking podcast is a show that is founded on free-flowing conversation and may at times venture into mature subjects. Listener discretion is advised.
Earthspeak Podcast coming to you on August 25th, 2022. Holy hell. That is 3 podcasts on this feed now this week. Yeah. Remember I was talking about, cutting back and scaling back and, taking a little break and all that? Gets the out the window, I guess, right now, sort of. It is what it is, man. Not, like I said, this shit's therapy for me, man. Of course, this podcast you subscribe to on all podcast catchers, such as Amazon Music, Stitcher Radio, Google Podcasts, what am I missing? Spotify, Stitcher Radio, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, you name it. Anything out there. Of course, visit the Earnestly Media YouTube page especially, please. We are 2 more subscribers away from 100. I know. I'm just digging up for more subscribers, man. I appreciate the support. Appreciate all your help. Appreciate you guys following this and whatnot. Anyway. Yeah, I wanted to get into this thing, man. I'm so annoyed. Today was Thursdays is like I was saying on the pod last week that Thursday is like one of my favorite days of the week now. It's the day my wife and I have to have off together. We have 7 hours for ourselves before we get the kids from school, and then unfortunately this entire day we spent in a vet's office with our cat. Our cat went back into the vet today. We had this pretty much the same issue we've had with him for the last month. He's having a hard time urinating. Apparently, there's a blockage in his urethra, what do we call it. Luckily today we got good news that he doesn't need surgery for now, that it's just an infection. Hopefully the medication we give him is going to help a lot. But I got to tell you, man, you guys remember this a couple months ago, I put my dog down 13 years, OC, back in May. And I love owning pets. We've had pets, since my wife and I have been together, we've owned we've owned 2 dogs, we've owned about 4 cats, a chinchilla, a snake, things of that nature. And we've, when I grew up, I wasn't necessarily the biggest pet person in the world. I mean, I love dogs as a kid. I love, but I never really, we didn't really have a lot of pets growing up as a kid. And when I was, prior to my wife and I meeting, in my early adulthood years, what to call that, I didn't really, have pets and I didn't have pets at all, I'll be honest with you, because I was on the go, I was in the band, I was living for me, man. I was living for me. I was never home anyway, so no point in me having a pet. I was meeting my wife 2006, and she's a pet lover, specifically cats. We've had a lot of pets through the years, in the 6 years we've been together. I love pets. I miss my dog like crazy. OC, miss him like crazy. Putting him down was hard. But I gotta tell you, man, and I think today really hit me. I love my pets to death, so I'm not complaining here. But I think I'm over pet ownership. I think I'm just over it now. People ask me, would you have a dog? Honestly, not right now. I've said before in the past that, I have 2 young kids. When I had my dogs, and my dog, specifically OC, when I had him was pre-marriage, pre-kids. Different life back then. Now I got 2 young kids, ages 9 and 5, who demand all my attention. Which means the more attention I give to them, less I give to my pets, to my dogs. Cats are easy because cats, they don't really need your attention the same way. Like cats, you feed them, unless you have food in the bowl, long as they have water in the bowl, long as the litter box is clean, they are good to go. Dogs need your undivided attention. You gotta walk them. You really gotta spend time with them. They demand attention. And look, they deserve that. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but where I'm at in my life right now, and where I'm trying to be at in terms of like simplifying my life and less and less and less, it's harder for me to give that kind of attention now. So my wife and I already decided, we're not getting another dog, at the very least till our kids get older, to where they can help out and take care of it. Help take care of it, rather. Not just take care of it, but help take care of it. But I think I'm over pet ownership. I think I'm really just over it. I just think, raising 2 kids and all that, and the other responsibilities I have to deal with, on a daily basis. No, not complaining about it, but this is the reality of the situation. I just think when you have that, plus sometimes to get sick, and a bill pops up here where you have to go to the vet, and they got $400 here and $300 here. It's a pain in the ass, man. It really is. But God, I love pets though. I love my cats too, especially. And I'll tell you what, cats. As I'm learning as I get older, cats are so much easier than dogs because cats, they don't necessarily need you to be at the beck and call every minute. Just make sure that the basics are taken care of. Make sure you have make sure their bowls have water. Make sure that make sure they have their litter box clean and food. That's it. And get them the occasional pet on the forehead. That's all. So, this topic here, actually, I'm gonna give credit to our old friend Big Jim James Neese. The name of this episode is called "Friends Will Be Friends Will Be Friends." Stole that from a Queen song, but stole that also from a Queen song that was actually also a extended version of that same song called "Friends Will Be Friends." It's on the it's a kind of magic album from 1986. And he did an episode on his other podcast, his third podcast, Discussions with Nobody, which I've appeared on quite often. I'm actually supposed to appear on there very soon. Strange enough, talk about Queen actually, and he was talking about how the friends he's had through the years, and then from going from high school on, then through college, and then friends you made through wherever, through numerous jobs, and then friends through this medium of podcasting, and obviously we become friends through this podcasting medium, of course. And it got me thinking the importance of friendships and the different tiers of friends I've made on the way throughout the years, and then people who you might think are friends but are really as acquaintances, and that's okay too. I've always said as you get older that you're probably gonna have less friends, but the friends you do have in that circle are going to have more value to you because you're going to invest more time into that friendship as opposed to having like a number, just some random number of friends out there. I'll admit, and for myself too, I have a lot of friends. I have a lot of friends I made through the years. So certainly there are tiers of friends I do have, and let's be real here. I've had friends going back to middle school, who's still my best friends. I have friends I've made through the years of high school. Not a lot of my high school friends I've not really kept up with, honestly. I mean, some of them on Facebook, and I say hi to them, but I don't know if I consider them friends in the same way. I would dare say the friends I made through middle school, I'm probably a little closer to than I am to the ones in high school. There's friends I had when I went to church back in the day that I still maintain friendships with to this day. Friends I made through my adulthood, randomly. People I randomly met through the gym or met through different jobs I had growing up, and then there's friends also I've had at my job, But I also had a lot of friends also I made that I made through the internet, growing up, in the early internet phase. You guys know I'm a big Michael Jackson fan. I was a big, I still am obviously, but I had a lot of friends I made through that medium too, especially on the internet. That to this day, I maintain friendships with 20 plus years later. People I met on the internet back in 2000, 2001, we're still good friends today. We talk all the time on text and all that, which is actually really strange. People say like Michael Jackson or like any medium. But the truth is, if there's something you're passionate about and you find people you, through that medium, you end up befriending them to the point. There's also friends I've made, again, through this podcast. In the last 11 years doing this podcast, I've networked with people, and some people have come and gone. Some people I still keep in contact with to some degree. But there's also people who have stuck around and I've become not just like folks I just bring on a podcast to talk about whatever. They're also people that I've actually invested a lot of time into. Even sometimes some of them I haven't met in person yet. How about this? Obviously, Big Jim, of course, is one of them. But how about Kyle Nash? I've known Kyle Nash now, still in the game, for 10 years. About 10 years now. I have still not met him yet. I've still not met him yet in person. We were supposed to meet finally this year in March when I went out to Orlando for my family trip, but that didn't work out. Obviously, we spoke about this podcast after that. I've met Antoine Staley quite a few times. Actually, we had lunch together a couple times. G. Stelio, he has been on the show a long time, but G. Stelio, G.W. Grass, I met him one time in 2015 going to New York. It's just amazing how, like, when you flow through life and the people you meet, you don't know if that's going to stick going forward. You don't know if that's going to be a friendship that they'll sustain for 30, 40 years, or maybe for 2-3 years. But those people represent a time in your life where, that time in your life rather. And it's just strange, how like myself anyway, how I've gone through so many phases of friends. And again, there are people I still talk to, but I'm not as close as I used to. There are people who are just there for a ride for a while, and then they just kind of fell off the face of the earth, I guess, when I call that, But I also understand the importance of friendship too, especially. And they're like another family as well too. They're like another family, Some of them, dare say, better than family. Although I will say, in my case, I'm pretty lucky that I have family I'm close to and friends I'm most close to I can rely on. But yeah, the friendships I've made and the friendships I've sustained through whatever medium, whether it was the podcast or the internet or people I went to high school, middle school with, people I met, at work, I was thinking about that, and I listened to that podcast episode with Jim on his show, discussion. You guys should check out, by the way, also too. It's on any podcast catcher. Just listening to that, it triggered, that a little bit for me. Like, yeah, I 42 years of living, and I've gone through the gamut of friends and friendships and stuff, and it's been pretty cool to really, that I've, pretty cool that I still have people I talk to 20 plus years, 30 plus years that I've known, and we still maintain that. People who I've met in recent years that have become tight with me, So it's just really fascinating when you go through the world, and it's a big world out there, but it's also, you have your ecosystem, and it's so cool. It is really cool. I just wanted to address that here on the podcast. Another thing I was thinking about too recently is that, my oldest son is 9 years old, Eli. I realize as the older he gets, the more I see myself in him. And that's some really scary shit, man. It really is. Like, a lot of times they say, your kids end up like you or whatever. And I thought it was a cliche. My youngest son, Logan, is 5 years old. Obviously, still a lot of growing to do there, but definitely a lot of his personality traits was like his mom. Obviously, it's just some of me as well, too. But my oldest son, as he continues to develop now and get older, like, I see a lot of myself, my oldest son. The big difference, I think, with my son and I, though, is that a lot of things, for example, he's at 9 years old, he's already girl crazy. That's crazy. I mean, he's been girl crazy pretty much since kindergarten, but even at 9 years old. The difference is between him and I is that he's way more expressive about his feelings, whether it's about the girls he likes, he has crushes on, or the things that bother him. Whereas with me, I was not very expressive as a child. I was someone who tended to keep things down, not wanting to express things, not wanting to talk about things, and just kind of whatever. I didn't have, in my opinion, at least back then, growing up, I didn't have the safe space, in my opinion, to be able to talk about my feelings. I always said that through my life, up until the last couple of years, bringing up mental health and bringing up anxiety, that I was always a go person. I always just kept going. And that was the way I thought back then. And that's what I thought through my 20s and into my 30s. And as I got older, I'm now starting to deal with some of the ramifications of not dealing with certain things. I held a lot of things back. Anger issues I held back. Whereas my oldest son, who does have anger issues, he's very expressive. If something bothers him, he's going to tell you. He's going to tell you. And in some ways, it's a two-edged sword for me, because on one hand, it's an ego trip for me, because I don't like being spoken down to by my son not much, at all. So my first instinct is to come at him and match his intensity, which really isn't healthy, to be honest with you, too, also. But at the same time, I appreciate his perspective and where he's coming from, because at the same time, I want him to feel like he can come to me and to mom and to everybody else, adults in the family, especially, or people you trust, that if something bothers him. So it's navigating all that. And I see a lot of myself in him. He's ADHD, so am I. It's one of those things where, like, I look at him like, God, he's so much like me. The difference is that, at least in his end, he's way more expressive about it. And I think that's a positive. I was talking to a therapist about this, actually, too, a long time ago. And she said, yeah, it's good that he's expressive about it. A lot of kids hold things back, hold things down, hold things back. And to me, that's even scarier, because if you try to talk to them, they don't give you a better understanding of why they feel the way they feel and whatnot. So I'm kind of grateful for that, honestly. So, all right, some sports news here for the week. Kevin Durant, annoying ass, is decided to stay in Brooklyn. Obviously we've been discussing the Kevin Durant saga all summer long. Back in June, late June, Kevin Durant requested a trade from the Nets. We heard teams that were interested, but nothing's come to fruition. All of a sudden now, Kevin Durant, the Brooklyn Nets have finally come to not an agreement, to an understanding. And again, this whole saga is weird because this guy, Kevin Durant, look, he's top 3 player in the league still. But, this guy still had, 3-4 years on the contract left. He had no leverage. Here's a statement that was released by the Nets here, by Sean Marks. Steve Nash and I, together with Joe Tsai, the owner, and Clara Wu Tsai, met with Kevin Durant and Rich Kleiman in L.A. yesterday. We have agreed to move forward with our partnership. We are focusing on basketball with one collective goal in mind: build a lasting franchise to bring a championship to Brooklyn. I mean, that sounds good that sounds all nice and clean in theory, man. Look, this is what I know going forward. If indeed this is real, and when I say real, I mean sort of like they've really come to a place where, okay, we now understand each other, which is cool. I'm not saying that it's a bad thing. It's good. In the onset, we have to kind of reassess the East a little bit now, because as we were talking about free agency this summer and talking about the things that what teams are in the mix to go to the finals next year in the NBA, we weren't discussing the Nets because we all assumed that the Nets at some point, both Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant will be gone. At some point between now and training camp. And now Kevin Durant, as you know, is going to be sticking around. At least what the team says right now. Kyrie Irving opted in for another year. We assume that Kyrie and Kevin are a package deal at this point. That, for the time being, that they're hanging around. So now that we know this, now that we know the Nets are going to be, at least right now, for what we understand, going to be this core for next, calendar year, I guess. We got to reassess the East a little bit now too, because one of the things that I don't think we paid attention to, and honestly we really shouldn't, because it wouldn't have mattered unless the stars were staying. The Nets actually put together a nice little roster around that core. Now again, we weren't considering the core to be together in 2022-23, but now that we know the core is likely going to be together going to training camp into the season in October, we have to assess the East a little bit now. Because we were talking about top teams in the East, going next year. The Bucks, obviously. The Celtics. The Heat. The Sixers. We weren't discussing the Nets. Now we have to. Obviously, there's a lot of baggage there when it comes to the Nets. But all things equal, if the Nets figure this out, there's no more vaccine mandates now in New York City. Everything's cleared now. You're going to have a full camp now. Ben Simmons, where is he fitting all this? You still have to consider the Nets a contender. You still have to. All things, now, granted, yes, we have to consider all the things that go with that too also. That go with, being with the Nets. Kyrie being weird. Durant's injury history, obviously, recent history. Ben Simmons' mental health. Yes, we're going to consider those things. But I'm saying if all those things work out, if they all work out, this is the one that favors in the East again. Because, again, Durant, Kyrie, Ben Simmons, if he plays and he gets his foot under him on that, you have a whole camp now to get this all together. This is a team in the top two, easily top 2-3 teams in the East. You have to consider that. Would I put him as a favorite? I wouldn't, because of the other things I said. You got to consider those all things. But if all things equal, this is probably still the best team in the Eastern Conference on paper. And not just because of Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving and Ben Simmons, but now, like I told you, they put together a nice little roster around there. You got Seth Curry, you got Royce O'Neal. They actually have a really good roster around the core. And now that the core's come back now, we got to kind of look back a little bit and say, oh, if they figure this out, this could be the team that we all thought would have been 2 years ago in the finals or winning a championship. So, just saying. this is big news for the Nets. If you're a Nets fan, there's not many of y'all, obviously. Although there's a couple of I'm friends with, obviously. This could be good for you guys if only if things fall into place. Staying on basketball, I started watching. Well, I spoke on a podcast last week. Watch episode 3 of the Legacy documentary, The True Story of the LA Lakers. Man, this has been an awesome documentary so far. They debuted the first week with 2 episodes, and now they're dropping 1 every week now. I don't know how much parts this documentary is going to be. I think it's 8 to 10 parts, I believe. I'm not sure exactly. But man, fantastic episode. A lot of the focus on Jerry Buss and how he almost had to sell the team in 1987. Obviously, this goes from after 85 when they win the title against the Celtics through 86 when they lose to the Rockets. 87 they win the title. 88 they go back to back. That's an interesting story. That's where you put Pat Riley into focus now, and you start seeing the wear and tear of Pat Riley. Obviously, when you get to the next episode, you'll see why he left the Lakers in 1990. He becomes a little bit of a hard ass now, and you can argue that part of the reason they lost the finals 89 when they swept through the first 3 rounds before they swept to the Lakers, swept to the Pistons in 89 was because of excuse me, wear and tear on the team. Obviously you saw Barry Scott injury. Magic Johnson gets injured in game 2 of that finals. A lot of Lakers fans believe that if the Lakers were full strength, they win that finals. I tend to push back on that. That Detroit team in 89 was fantastic. Top 8 team all time in the history of the league. We also learned that Jerry Buss is a genius. One of the reasons he was able to get out of debt and able to keep the team going forward was because he ended up giving it was a general Great Western Forum, the Great Western Bank, giving them naming rights to the arena at the Forum, which worked out for him because he was able to get out of debt that way, or works way out of debt. I'm impressed with the documentary too because it remains very transparent, honest. Again, the family, you see some of the warts there. Obviously, the Buss siblings, Jeannie, Jim, lots of different, clashing of the minds there, of course. I love when they get into the Pistons, narratives. The Pistons should have beaten them in 88, didn't beat them in 88. The Isaiah game in Game 6 88 finals. And I tell you, I'll say this much, as someone who's a big Isaiah Thomas fan, one of my top 3 players of all time. If they three-peat, and they could easily three-peat in that era, because they could have won, they should have won 88, would have won 89 probably, and definitely 90. We look at Isaiah Thomas a little differently, as an all-time great. If Isaiah wins 3 titles, and he already beat Jordan, Bird, and Magic to win titles, we look at Isaiah Thomas in a much different light these days. I feel like Isaiah Thomas becomes even more and more underrated. We look at, obviously, you talk about point guards all the time. We always, obviously, we're going to say it's Magic. For me now, Steph Curry, because Steph Curry now with longevity and now 4 titles. You have to give it to him there. But Isaiah's the number 3. It's a clear number 3. And I just think Isaiah's legacy, looks a little differently if he wins that 3rd title. Obviously we know the story with him and the Dream Team and him and Jordan, all that. So, but yeah, episode 3 was fantastic. I really enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to seeing episode 4. You see the Pat Riley thing again, sending the Pat Riley narrative, being a hard ass and a hard worker and a grinder, and you see how him and you'll see how him and Magic fell out in 90 and why Riley left in 90, took a year off, and then go to New York in 91. So check it out again on Hulu. Fantastic documentary. It's out every Monday also too, just for the record. And watching the documentary too and seeing the Lakers go through the Celtics, and dominant, just the domination of that team that decade. It got me thinking about Larry Bird again. We had a discussion this summer about the top 10, players all time and all that. And Steph Curry, obviously to me cracking my 10 now with this finals win in June against Boston. So a lot of the argument was that, who you take out. You take out this guy, that guy, whatever. A lot of folks I spoke to when they made the change to Curry to go in the top 10, a lot of people said they took out Larry Bird, which I guess makes sense some way because of his career, how it played out in terms of lack of longevity, all that. I gotta be honest with you, I took out Shaq on my list. I can't take out Bird just yet. I got Bird at 9 on my list, but I can't. You watch the documentary, you watch just how dominant Larry Bird was. Look, yes, he had from 79 his rookie year through 87, and especially from 81, 82 to 86, 87, was the best player in basketball. It wasn't Magic. It wasn't Kareem at that point. It wasn't Dr. J. Jordan wasn't the guy yet. Isaiah was still pretty good, but wasn't the guy yet. Larry Bird was the guy in the NBA in the mid-'80s. So, and this is the hard part of taking off my list. Like, the case to take him off my list is the fact that, okay, well, he only played X amount of years. After 87, his back went out, went to shit, and he was done. But, God, the thing is, Larry Bird's peak years from 81, 82 through 86, 87, I mean, it's one of the highest peaks in history of the league. And that's why I have a hard time even considering taking him out of the top 10 because of that. I have to acknowledge that. I have to acknowledge also the success of that team. They went to 4 straight finals between 84, 85, 86, and 87, went to 4 straight finals. So this is why I can't take Larry Bird off my list just yet. I just can't do it. I can't. So, maybe at some point it'll happen. I think it will at some point happen because I think the lack of longevity is going to hurt him at some point, and then you're going to find another guy, whoever it is going to be, that just it's okay. At some point, you got to make some changes there in the list. But man, I have a hard time taking him off my top 10 right now. I really do. Speaking of documentaries, also too, we got a new one coming up to Netflix. We just heard an announcement a couple days ago. A new documentary on the 2008 Redeem Team coming to Netflix in October. It is produced by Dwayne Wade and LeBron James. Looking forward to watching that one. I really am. What else here I got? Some baseball talk here. Probably the best story. Obviously for me, the Mets season's been fantastic and all that. Although they're still right now in a tight race with the Braves, and man, the Braves. God, for as good as the Mets have been this year, man, the Braves have just been awesome. And the only hiccup the Braves had in the last month now is when they lost to 4-5 against the Mets 2.5 weeks ago. And yet, right now, as we're recording, they're only a game and a half behind in the standings. It's scary shit. It really is. It really is. But outside of that, to me, the best story in baseball right now, and definitely the coolest story going on in sports, really, in my opinion, is Albert Pujols. He's back in St. Louis. This is his final year. He's retiring at the end of the year. He's chasing 700 home runs right now. He's right now 7 away. He's gone on a stretch right now. It's been fantastic. I don't have the number in front of me, but he's gone on a fantastic stretch of home runs. He's 7 away from 700. I still have some doubts whether he'll get there because we're now ending August, all September. But then again, the stretch of down right now, maybe it helps him. I would love him to come back another year and try to see if he can break the record at some point in the next 2 years. I don't think it's going to happen, but I really hope Pujols gets 700 home runs this year. That would be an awesome, awesome story. So, but right now, that's the coolest story going on in sports right now, as we get closer to football, of course. So, some WWE news. Johnny Gargano is back. Johnny Wrestling back, appeared on Raw on Monday. Nice reception by the crowd. Like I said, folks, Triple H era. I spoke on the last episode. That's the whole episode. Triple H era is off to a great start. Like a lot of those guys, those NXT guys that he was in love with are now hitting the roster. I think it's now the 5th NXT guy, wrestler he's had on the roster debut since taking over from Vince McMahon a month ago. I mean, Johnny Gargano's really look. If I really hope this is the direction they're going in, and they're diversifying the product now, especially too. I know Gargano's a small guy, but he's a fantastic wrestler. If this is the sign of things coming for Triple H and WWE, then AEW is in big trouble because we're now getting the thing that I think a lot of wrestling fans who love both companies are getting on the WWE side now. That they're getting more diversity, of product now. And Johnny Gargano is, to me, at NXT was top, one of one probably in the whole company. And him being back here, I think he'll be in a good program. We put him in a U.S. title picture, maybe put him in an Ice title picture. I don't know what it is, but this guy's ready to go. He's fantastic, and I'm very excited about him being back being on the main roster now, especially. All right, couple of things to get out of here. We are back on that debate, the discussion on student loan forgiveness. Joe Biden signed the law, the student loan forgiveness plan. I think the number was up to $20,000 of forgiveness in debt. I've spoken about my position on student loan forgiveness. I'm still open to the discussion. I'm actually against it personally. It's not something that I would die on a hill on either, to be honest with you, because there's a lot of the arguments I'm hearing now from people on the other side of the political aisle, say, what about us, and we paid our bills and this and that, and I look, believe me, I see that argument too, especially I see that argument. In fact, one will say I would probably agree with the argument, but there's a lot of hypocrisy involved in this too, especially with politicians now. Especially senators who voted against the bill, who are against this, but yet they also have their own PPP loans, or their own loans from wherever they got it from, and forgiven by the government. So a lot of intellectual dishonesty in that, in my opinion. Like I said, it's not a topic I'm gonna die on a hill for necessarily either. I obviously I don't like the idea. Obviously, just what's gonna happen here is you're gonna see this roll into our taxes, and we gotta pay for this also. Look, there's a lot of things I think people realize that don't realize rather that we pay for that we necessarily don't even want to pay for, or we don't even know we're paying for because of taxes. I don't like it. I'm being honest here. I don't like it, but at the same time, that's just the reality of how we do things in this country, unfortunately. This is why voting's important. And this is why it's also important to know who you're voting for. And even then, they're all, a lot of times, I'll be honest with you, for all the bullshit, I believe sometimes both parties are on the same side when it comes to, that world, that, the ecosystem of Washington, D.C. Very corrupt, so. But yeah, whatever. I'm not gonna die in the hill on the student loan forgiveness discussion. I'm not. It is what it is. I have to like it. No big deal. But hey, whatever. Last thing before I get out of here. I've been with a little bit of a Steve Harvey phase lately. Steve Harvey is the greatest Family Feud host ever. I'm gonna say that right now, off the gate. I'm someone who grew up obsessing with game shows growing up as a kid. Family Feud being one of my favorites of all time. I watched when Richard Dawson was still hosting in his final years. I got into it when Ray Combs was also watching, too as well. I thought Richard Dawson's a fantastic host. Obviously, people get creeped up by him now today, especially because he used to kiss all his guests on the lips. it is what it is. Ray Combs was really, really good. And then he had, I think, Louis Anderson was also the host for a while too as well. And they're all great. They're all great. I watched all three of them, and I thought they were great hosts on the show. Steve Harvey is leaps and bounds and miles ahead better than all those hosts in the history of Family Feud. I've been presenting a lot of clips from the show on my Instagram as of late. My wife and I, we tend to watch episodes here and there when it's on TV. He's just awesome. He's just amazing what he does. And, funny, kind of an old school funny, and obviously the shows are different now too, a lot more, I guess a little looser in, not language, but more so in content. Like, you can say certain things, and it's not as, taboo to say today in 2022, which I think allows Steve Harvey to be even more, transparent and this that much diverse in how he responds to guests and whatnot. But he is, to me, the greatest Family Feud host ever. If you haven't watched him host the show, at this point, I don't know what you're waiting for, because he's just awesome. Just saying about that. At least watch the clips on the Instagram on the Instagram IG page. So, all right, that's enough for me. My throat's getting a little scratchy again. I'm still getting over this cold. I am on Twitter again, EJChristian7, Earnestly Media on YouTube, Earnestly Media. Check out all the podcasts. Again, subscribe also to Football's Awesome Podcast. Again, it'll be on its own feed. It debuts again. Season 2 starts September 6th. I did, however, have the three episodes we did this offseason, related to free agency and then ranking the top quarterbacks in each conference are on this other feed now, so you can check it out now as you get prepared for the NFL season coming up in a few weeks. I cannot wait. This is going to be a fantastic season. Also, this podcast and this feed, we literally last night just did our annual NFL over-unders with Zach, with Chris, the Professor, the Degenerate. Fantastic episode. Long one, 2 hours, 19 minutes clocked in. I've had a great time last time with those guys doing it. So do that. Check it out as well. Subscribe also if you're into wrestling, my wrestling podcast, the Take 3 Wrestling Podcast. I am back tonight on the show. I am back. So look forward to that as well, too. Again, Twitter, EJChristian7, Earnestly Media on all podcast catchers, Earnestly Media on YouTube, especially too. Again, we're a few away from 100. Please support the movement, the content, all that. I appreciate it. We'll talk to you guys later. God bless y'all, and see ya.